Next, I want to cover the rock cycle. So first, just some definitions. The Earth is made up of rocks. These are consolidated combinations of mineral. There can be, where they appear at the surface, we call that an outcrop. But most of the solid rock is buried underneath soil, or what we call regolith. Regolith is broken up rock. So rocks are generally minerals that are bound together. Occasionally, they can also be created from what we call organic material, like coal, which is made of compressed plants over millions of years. But with the rock cycle, we want to discuss three basic types of rocks, and they're formed because of different processes. And so they can sometimes interact with each other, but this is an illustration of what we call the rock cycle. So let's go over those three different rock types. First is igneous rock, and this is a term that means fire formed. And this is sort of where rocks originate, that they originate from the cooling of magma. And by the way, we call it magma when it's inside the earth, or we call it lava when it gets its way to the surface. Both lava and magma are molten rock, just one is underneath the ground and one is on the surface. So if it forms underneath the ground, if magma down here cools, it becomes what we call intrusive igneous rock, like inside, intrusive, below the ground. And sometimes if it makes it all the way out to the surface through a volcano, we call that extrusive igneous rock. So that is rock that is formed from lava up at the surface. A second type of rock is sedimentary rock, and these are created from external processes. So as erosion washes away rock from mountains and other places, they can settle into the bottoms of lakes, or they can be sand deposits, or they can be at the bottom of the ocean. But as the material gets buried deeper and deeper, they turn into rock. They solidify because of all the pressure from the overlying rock. So these are some examples of sedimentary rock. I'll highlight one in particular. This is limestone. Limestone is created from calcium deposits at the bottom of oceans. Likewise, consolidated sand makes sandstone, and clay makes shale, and these are things that solidify under pressure after being buried over time. So for example, one thing notable about sedimentary rock is that because they are deposited in layers, you can have layers of different types of material, one over the other. And so these are various types of sedimentary layers, each one made in the Grand Canyon, made up of a different material representing something different that was happening during that geologic time period. So for example, one might be made of consolidated sand. There might have been sand deposits that consolidated and were buried over time. Another might be limestone, created from the bottom of a shallow sea. One might be from mud, and so on. The third type is metamorphic rock, and these are created when you either take sedimentary or igneous rock and you put them under tremendous amounts of heat and pressure. So where continents are pushed together, or where you have volcanoes, or where you bury rock, the heat and pressure can change the rock from one form to the other. So here we have a type of layered sedimentary rock. Pressure is being put onto it from the sides, and that pressure can actually change the internal structure of the rock, resulting in a new type of rock. Just one quick example, we mentioned limestone earlier, and this is created from ocean deposits. If you put limestone under enough pressure, it becomes a harder type of rock called marble. Like if you've ever seen a marble slab or a marble coffee table, that is a metamorphic rock created originally from limestone. Likewise, sandstone, when it's put under heat and pressure, can create a hard rock called quartzite. Usually the rocks are tougher and harder than they would be otherwise. I'll include a clip for a video that it talks about Manhattan schist, that the tall buildings in New York are built on. That is a type of metamorphic rock. So just to recap, we have three types. We have igneous rock, formed from the cooling of magma underground or lava at the surface. We have different words for each. Intrusive is from magma at the top, extrusive, I'm sorry, from magma below the ground, and extrusive from lava above the ground. We have sedimentary rock, formed from rock sediments washed into the ocean floor or deposited in place, and metamorphic rock that occurs where we have heat and pressure because of continents coming together or from burying the rock.